Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is the Leafs Convo. I'm Norm, along with Mike. It is Sunday, July 18th, 2021. We're a few days out from the next expansion draft. The Seattle Kraken at the center of it all, and they're looking to find some gems in the expansion pick'em, if you want to put it that way. It's going to be big for them and big for all the teams involved, leaving a lot of players who are vital to those organizations unprotected just because they have to. Let's focus on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Mr. Augello, good morning.
Good morning, Norm. It's starting to sneak out. The reports are, and obviously people will be listening to this throughout the week. But right now the news is unofficial. But as I've suspected for a little while, the Leafs, according to Elliot Friedman, are going to protect 8 skaters and the goaltender Jack Campbell. The 8 skaters being the top 4 forwards: Tavares, Nylander, Marner, and Matthews. The four defensemen: Riley, Muzzin, Brody, and Justin Hall. I know that some people were disputing whether they should protect Hall, and I keep going back to them. It's like, he's a right-hand D on the second pairing, and he's making $2 million. If you don't think that Seattle is going to pick him, you're high. So that this means now that Alex Kerfoot is exposed, Travis Dermott would be exposed, and the newly acquired Jared McCann will be exposed. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But this was I think the wisest course of action for the Leafs, because unless they had a side deal, they really could not protect Hall. He's one of their top 4 defensemen. I mean, some people think that's a weakness on their blue line. I don't particularly think so, but they can afford to lose a forward like a Kerfoot, and in terms of cap space, they would help them in terms of clearing cap space to sign somebody else. I think they're going to get hurt like every other team, but not wound them significantly.
That's the whole point of an expansion draft. A new team comes in, it gets an opportunity to take maybe not the best of the organizations that exist, but some of the pieces that a lot of those organizations covet but can't hold on to because, there's a thing called fairness in professional sports when a new team comes on board, and then contractually it's just not possible. On Justin Hall, any critic of his is short-sighted. This guy did what he had to do last season. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I feel like a guy like that hasn't even come into his own yet. Will he be a superstar? No, but you don't need you don't need him to be a superstar. You need him to play effective hockey, be smart, be responsible, support the guys who have a little bit more stardom in their game, and he did just that. And I like the fact that they did hang on to him and protect him, because he will be a vital piece to what this team is trying to do, especially on a blue line that didn't leave too much to be desired last season. So let's just keep on going with that. The Jared McCann acquisition, very interesting in that with the possibility of losing Alex Kerfoot, you have a guy who can take his place. Only 25 years of age, really hasn't even come into his own yet, and the metrics on him are not overwhelmingly great, but do suggest that he's a player who is quite effective and would fit in quite nicely on a team like the Maple Leafs that really does need to be focused on having a sort of two-way approach, of all 3 zone 200-foot type of game.
Well, it's funny because my initial response to the trade, I mean, first of all, they gave up Philip Hallander in a 7th-round pick, and Philip Hallander was somebody they got in the Kasperi Kapanen deal, so he's just flipped back to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh knew that they were going to lose McCann. They weren't going to protect him. They probably knew that they were going to lose him in the expansion draft, so they better to get something than nothing at all. The Leafs, they're exposing him, but I think they feel relatively safe that Kerfoot or Dermott will be the selection of the Kraken. Either Dermott, who was under Dave Haxtell, last season because Hackstall handled the defense, or Kerfoot, who under 2 years at $3.5 million, and most of that's been already paid in signing bonus, so that would be attractive to Seattle just starting out. McCann could be the Kerfoot replacement because he can play wing and center, or he could be the Hyman replacement because I think all things indicate that Hyman is gone because Hyman apparently is drawing offers of $6 million per on 5 or 6 year deals. And even if the Leafs extended it out to 8, that would be, say, $4.5 million on an 8 year deal. And I don't think that they want to go 8 years on a 29-year-old forward. So it's, like I said, I don't begrudge Zach Hyman anything. He's been basically underpaid the last 4 years, making $2.25. He's a great guy. He's a really good teammate. He plays in an essential role, and he'll do that wherever he goes. But they simply just can't afford. He benefited from playing with either Tavares or Matthews. He's put up good offensive numbers, and he's going to hit the jackpot. And I don't, like I said, I don't begrudge him that. But the Leafs have to respond to that. And McCann or Kerfoot, whoever doesn't get selected, or if it's Dermott, then both of them, and then maybe Kerfoot gets traded, will be a replacement for one of those forwards. And my suspicion here, Norm, is that if they lose Kerfoot, you're probably going to see Nick Foligno resign. At least they'll try. I don't think he wants to go back to Columbus because Columbus is a rebuilding scenario. And I think on a 2 or 3 year deal, they can get Foligno to come back. So that may be where they go.
So we have the expansion draft on Wednesday. The NHL entry draft follows that. And then obviously free agency opens up towards the end of the month. At least from the Leafs perspective, whomever the Kraken take, it'll be anticlimactic because we just have a feeling it's going to be someone like Alex Kerfoot and Travis Dermott. If he's selected, big deal. It's been nice knowing him. We thought he would turn out to be better. It just didn't work out the way that fans had hoped, the organization had forecasted. And I'm sure Travis Dermott deep down probably thinks a change of scenery will benefit his game. So it's not like we're waiting with bated breath to see what the Kraken do. And if they take a player that the Leafs have left exposed, the organization has to, go into emergency mode.
Right.
That all of that considered, as we pound forward through the draft, and it's not like the Leafs have a petri dish of opportunity there, at least right now. We have to think of what's going to be happening with a signing period and free agency and stuff like that. Taking into consideration where we are at this point and where the Leafs are trying to get to. What are you thinking that way?
Well, in regards to Hyman, and I know that earlier in the week, the Leafs gave his agent, Todd Reynolds, the go-ahead to talk to other teams. Likely to see if a deal for his negotiating rights can be facilitated. Now, we saw that yesterday. We saw that on Saturday, right before the deadline, with Barclay Goodrow being traded from Tampa Bay to the Rangers. And the Rangers got a 7th round, or the Lightning got a 7th round pick. I don't think you can, unless the bidding war is really hot and heavy. I don't think you're getting players for Zach Hyman's rights. I think you're probably getting maybe a 4th round pick or something like that, which, better something than nothing if he just walks away on July 28th. But I don't think, these pipe dreams of them getting players back for Zach Hyman's rights or sign and trades, which, I don't understand. Sign and trades happen in the NBA. They don't happen in the NHL. Maybe it would happen with somebody like a Tavares or a Jack Eichel if they were free agents, but
the contract has to be significant.
Right. And so that's not happening. So they'll get a draft pick for trading his rights more than likely. As for the goaltending situation, they didn't grant the rights to Freddie Anderson, which tells you that there's still an outside chance that they bring him back. But here's where I look at this situation and say Freddie's gone. I don't see in this market, even though there are a number of goaltenders that potentially could be available, that Freddie Anderson is going to take significantly less,
Mm-hmm.
meaning, say, a couple $1 million or $1.5 million. I don't see him taking 3 or $3.5 million on a 1 year or 2 year deal from the Leafs, and that's where I think they're slotting their second goaltender. I think they want to go with a tandem. I think they're paying Jack Campbell, I think 1.6. I think they want to spend maybe a couple million or up to 3 at most on a goaltender.
So Joseph Wall isn't going to be the guy.
Well, the thing is, I like Joseph Wall as a prospect. He's a couple years away, and the last couple of years have really screwed up the development of a number of people throughout the league. But he'll get an opportunity this year to play, I'd say, 40 to 50 games in the American Hockey League. But in terms of the NHL, I look at one scenario that I wrote about yesterday, and that's Braden Holtby. If Holtby is selected by Seattle, he could be flipped to the Leafs. There was a report out of from the Athletic out of Vancouver that one Eastern Conference team had contacted the Vancouver Canucks about Holtby, and Seattle asked them about Holtby if they would retain salary. If he's a $2.5 million cap hit, then that's for a year. Then that's a good stopgap. Mm-hmm. I think they need somebody. And the other name that was out there is Darcy Kemper from Arizona, but I don't know about that situation because Arizona traded Aiden Hill to San Jose yesterday, and right now they other than Kemper, they don't have a goalie in the organization. Now they could go out and sign somebody, but I mean, I don't know how much Arizona is willing to strip it down to the wood. They're a pathetic organization, but they need a goalie. So I mean, they need somebody between the pipes. Unless they're going to get a sumo wrestler or something like that, it's going to be Darcy Kemper unless they make a trade for another goalie.
So are you saying at this point it's still too difficult to forecast exactly, what you want to do until the Kraken make their picks, and then even beyond that, they may pick players that will be involved in trades or some sort of a transaction?
Especially with the goaltenders, because obviously they need 2 goalies to get through the season. So I've heard Chris Dreger from Florida is one of the options. And the thing that puzzles me about that is, he's a UFA. So why would they take him in the expansion draft instead of just waiting another week and signing him? But maybe they have an agreement already in place and they know that they want to get him in the fold. I would just have to touch on this because everybody's talking about it, because Carey Price
for sure. We're going to get to that.
Has been exposed. There's no chance in hell, and maybe I'll look like a fool a couple days from now if they do take him. There's no chance in hell that they're taking Carey Price. There's no way in hell they're taking him. He's that contract, as good as he was good in the playoffs. He was not fantastic in the playoffs, and that contract with 5 years left at $10.5 million is an absolute friggin' boat anchor. So Seattle would be doing Montreal a favor taking that off their books. So, but I don't think they would have exposed him if there wasn't some sort of side deal out there. So, I don't think Carey Price is going to end up in Seattle. But they're gonna pick 2 goaltenders, and then maybe they pick 2 more, and they'll probably flip those goalies to other teams for assets. And I would not be surprised, based on the relationship between Ron Francis and Kyle Dubas going back to the Sioux, that that there's some sort of arrangement or some connection, that there might be a deal. And by the way, Jared McCann played 3 years in the Sioux, so the Sioux connection continues.
Old guys fly fishing. Ian Scott is our future.
If he could stay healthy, I'd say maybe. I mean, that's the problem. He played 1 game last year, 1. So I mean, and then he missed almost all of the previous year with, I think it was hip surgery. So he's missed 2 years. He's 22 years old and he's played 3 games in the last 2 years. I hope that the development train continues, but he's more than likely going to play major minutes down in the ECHL with Newfoundland. And while Wall plays with the Marlies, and they have a couple of veteran goaltenders in Michael Hutchinson and Eric Kallgren, who they signed out.
Mike, you said it. Yeah. The last couple of years with COVID and the restructuring of leagues, the cancellation of leagues, postponement of leagues. A lot of these cats haven't had a chance to develop the way their predecessors had and the way they should be able to develop, leading into a potential top-notch professional career. I mean, everything's been sidetracked with the pandemic. So, a lot of these dudes that we're hoping to, make a big step right now, just like everybody else, have been delayed in that process.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt. I mean, and every team is dealing with this. I mean, even only the top prospects who may have benefited from being around the NHL clubs, or 19-year-olds like Nick Robertson playing in the American Hockey League may have benefited from playing against pros at an earlier age. But really, the last couple years is probably going to have an effect of stunting the growth of a large number of players. Now, the one thing, and we'll talk about this more next week as we get on the doorstep of free agency, but I would suspect the Leafs are going to repeat what they did last year in terms of adding 3 or 4 veterans on low contract. Now, I believe they're going to go after Foligno. Foligno, they're going to have to spend money on but Foligno, even though he's 32 or 33 years old, can fill some of the role that they lose with Hyman. So I think they'll bring back Foligno. If they, move out the salary of a Kerfoot, the Foligno would come in and replace that salary. But I do think, like they added Thornton and VC and Bogosian. I mean, I think they may bring Bogosian back, but I think there are veterans out there that they'll try to attract and bring back on lower salaries, and see if that formula works this time around. I don't know. I can't specify who. I have a suspicion on, maybe Tyler Bozak, if as potentially a third line center, if he's willing to take a lower amount. But supposedly he wants to stay in St. Louis. But I think they could bring back Bogosian on a 1-year deal. But there are other free agents out there who might think, okay, I'll go to Toronto. I'll benefit from being on Hockey Night in Canada every Saturday night. I may be able to trip. I can play with Matthews and Marner and pad my stats, and then go out and sell my wares on free agency. That is going to be the pitch that Kyle Dubas makes. I think he'll try to make some deals. I mean, I've heard, Connor Garland from Arizona. I've heard a couple of other scenarios, but I don't know. I mean, they're limited in terms of what they can do on the cap. And if they don't go against everything that they've said so far, which is moving one of the big forwards out, then they're gonna be sort of nickel and diming it in terms of bringing in players.
So you're telling me that you're not getting the name Landeskog pressed on the back of your Leafs jersey?
Please. I mean, okay. The only way, and I said this online, the only way that bringing in Gabriel Landeskog, who's a great player, he's 28 years old, the only way that makes sense financially or otherwise is you're trading Nylander. And then it would be a Nylander for Landeskog swap. You would sign Landeskog, you would trade Nylander, and you would get a young asset.
For Swede. Come on.
Yeah, right. But the difference is one is 24, the other is 28. I mean, it's not realistic. I don't think Landeskog is leaving Colorado, and if he does, I don't think it's for Toronto, because he would have to take significantly less than he'd get.
So why are these rumors out there? Who's propagating this idea? Why?
Where are the rumors being floated? Toronto. The center of the hockey universe, where if a rumor is tied to the Leafs, everybody in the hockey world knows it. These agents want the names of their clients out there. They'll attach them to Toronto, even though Toronto likely has no interest or has no ability to find them. I mean, okay, the Taylor Hall rumors. Give me a friggin' break. I mean, It's not. They aren't realistic. Taylor Hall. I mean, what might be happening is Boston is trying to get Taylor Hall for a little less, and maybe his agent floated it out there in the Toronto ether, and now all of a sudden, they might go to Toronto. Oh, we better pony up another $500,000. I mean, that's the way it works. Everything gets connected to Toronto, and I love how some report. Wow, not everything has to do with Toronto. Well, tell the agents that, because the agents are probably the ones floating the stuff.
Yeah, it's remarkable. It really is. And, fans who believe themselves to be astute, pushing these kinds of rumors out there, are clearly doing it for attention, because the process and the possibility are, difficult and limited, in terms of seeing something like that come to fruition. And then again, the same people who wanted Gabriel Landeskog to come and join the Maple Leafs are the same ones who think that, William Nylander is your forever Maple Leaf. Well, he would be the guy easiest to move in order to make room for someone like Landeskog. So
and the salaries might be comparable, so that's why I would, it's like you're not moving Marner at almost $11 million, because you're not going to get full value for him. You're going to get full value for Nylander, because he's $7 million, and because his bonus has already been paid, and the deal was front loaded. You're not going to get fair value for Marner. You're not going to get what you're giving out if you traded Marner. Just one thing in the chat here, old guys fly fishing is his thing here, says I'm hearing Foligno won't be back. Okay,
he's ear to the ground. He's in the pipeline.
I'll take him at his word that he's heard something. This is what I've heard. Initially, when Foligno was traded from Columbus to the Leafs, the intention was he was going to be here for a year.
Back, right?
He's going back. In the interim, Tortorella left. Zach Jones. I'm sorry.
Things have changed. Things have changed. It's not the same scenario that he left.
Seth Jones and Zach Werenski is 1 year away from unrestricted free agency. Seth Jones is asked to be traded. He said he's not going to sign in Columbus. So clearly they're going down the rebuild path. Mm-hmm. Now, Foligno's family is there, but I think he, at his point in his career, knows he's not going to win a Stanley Cup if he goes back to Columbus. So I think that Toronto has as good a now. If there's a bidding war for Foligno, then the Leafs can't really get involved. But if he wants to come back and they pay him a fair salary, I think he could be back. And obviously, he's going to play. If Hyman leaves, which I expect, he's going to play on the top two lines. So it could be Nick Foligno and Jared McCann. It could be Nick Foligno and Nick Robertson. We'll see, but I think there's a good chance, not a guarantee, but a good chance Foligno is back in blue and white.
Mm-hmm. So Foligno potentially, McCann. That's a youthful addition, maybe long term an upgrade over Alex Kerfoot, who played really well.
They have options, Norman. Yep. That's the thing about. McCann can play left wing and play center. I talked to Brian Metzer, who covers the Penguins, does their radio broadcast, a good buddy of mine, and he gave me the lowdown on McCann. He said McCann played center for them while Malkin was hurt, played second line center, scored pretty well. Then Malkin came back. They traded for Jeff Carter, and then he moved from center to the wing. He had some issues later on in the year in terms of consistency of scoring, but he averaged out to 26 goals in an 82 game season. He averaged out to 20 goals and put up double figures in goals. So I think that he's a pretty good ad and gives them some versatility. And just to follow up on old guy here, he says the Foligno thing came from Friedman. Well, Friedman said also that there's a chance he could come back. So there's conflicting information. I'm not saying it's a guarantee. I'm just saying what I heard, and with the situation in Columbus, that, and this is, it might have been based on whether the Leafs signed Hyman or not. Clearly they're not. So they're going to have a gap on the left side, and Foligno could fill that.
Yeah. Elliot Friedman is as legit a hockey insider analyst as you're going to get ever. But that doesn't mean he's right all the time. And he's not one of these guys, I believe, who has an affiliation within certain organizations, or either tempers information or contorts information, based on what needs to be heard that day, and how it may affect either positively or negatively a particular group of hockey people. This guy's as straight and narrow as it gets. It doesn't mean he's right all the time. And again, he can't penetrate every single facade that is put up in front of him. So sometimes he has to speculate, and he goes with his gut, and he's not exactly right. So, give him benefit of the doubt, but at the end of the day, I mean, he's just doing a job like any other in that position, and trying to, set a bit of a scene, a little bit of an expectation. But, whether he's right or he's wrong in this circumstance doesn't make that big a deal, because at the end of the day, Mike, what we're talking about in terms of alterations to the Maple Leafs right now just aren't, they're not impact. They just don't suggest impact. These are things that are going to be done to, subtly improve the team, to add players in the position where there has been a subtraction. And that's basically about it. So let's not lose our minds over whether, someone's available or someone's not, because the names we're talking about at this point, the players that we're suggesting may come in or may leave, just aren't of any major impact. Collectively, sure, it will amount to something. Well, but, I'm not going to lose my mind over this.
All right. Chris Johnston just tweeted out official, as we mentioned, the four forwards, 4 defensemen, and the goalie. So the available guys for Seattle are Kerfoot, McCann, Dermott, Adam Brooks, Pierre Engvall, Wayne Simmons, and Jason Spezza. I think it's going to be Kerfoot or Dermott. If it's McCann, somebody put it this way: if it's McCann, then the Leafs lost essentially Philip Hallander in the expansion draft, because McCann was never part of the team, really. It was just a 3-day transaction. So, I mean, we'll see. But I don't think any of those losses are wounding at all.
Yeah, and that's what I'm getting at. What do you think the core of the idea will be for the Kraken in terms of building this initial team?
I don't think that they're going to take a lot of players with money. They have to fill 60% of the $81.5 million cap in the expansion draft. So that means around $50 million. So they will take some salaried players. That's why I think a guy like Kerfoot makes sense. He's a $3.5 million cap hit. The bonus has been paid already, $750K in real money. He's 26, I believe, has only 2 years left in the deal. So that might be attractive to Seattle, but they have to take on some money, but it won't be Carey Price. Let me just say that. So I think that they're going to, unlike Vegas, I think this is going to be a true expansion team where they're not going to be able to take the advantage of the situation like Vegas did, where they got 2 for the price of 1 from teams like Florida or Minnesota, getting Alex Tuck and Riley Smith and Marcia So and William Karlsson. They'll get players, but they're not going to get extra players.
Vegas went to the final in its first year.
I know, and that's not, and
Is that right?
No, it's a miracle. I mean, everything fell into place, and that's it. Just, I mean, if that's not going to happen again. So, but Seattle's going to be more traditional in terms of the rebuild. They're going to take some young players. They're going to have some growing pains, but they're going to get some good players, and Ron Francis knows what he's doing. So, I think it'll be an interesting exercise to see what they get.
Just on to Price again, Will 85. He could be the next Fleury face of the franchise. It just. Based on the contract and where Carey is in his career.
I don't think that Marc Bergevin exposed Carey Price without knowing that they weren't going to take him, and they're not going to take him. It's 5 years at $10.5 million, and he's a 32-year-old goaltender, and he's not going to go anywhere but down. Why would you do that? Why would you saddle your team with 1/8 of their salary cap on a goalie who's going to decline? Honestly, Ron Francis is nuts if he does it. But I don't think Bergevin would have done it unless he had an idea, unless there's some sort of side deal there. Maybe it's like, take this guy off our roster and we'll trade you Jake Allen, or take, something like that. They have a lot of extra draft picks. Maybe they're going to trade 2 or 3 of their extra draft picks to not take Carey Price.
Ron Francis is a hockey guy. He's not the greatest showman. He doesn't want to build a carnival in Seattle. He wants to build a champion. Bringing in a Carey Price would be a huge move, and you would have to oversell it to a gullible fan base that actually is not very knowledgeable. Hey, here's the superstar, and in the not so twilight of his career, he's going to help us sell tickets and stuff like that. It's an interesting story. It would be an interesting concept, but Carey Price makes too much money. And, I'm wondering, among Habs fans, we don't have too many who frequent the Leafs Convo. Very tribal they are, just like Leafs fans are. But I'm wondering if from that core group of fans who are probably believing a little bit more now that the team went to the Stanley Cup Finals the way it did, that Carey Price is this iconic player who started his career in Montreal and who should finish it there. And we understand the sentimentality reeks heavy in Montreal beyond any other franchise and any other market. We know that. So with Carey Price, whether he's making a dime or he's making 10-15 million a year, I just feel like he's still the heart and soul of that organization, and I don't know how much they'd want to lose him.
Well, if you would have told me 2 weeks ago that both Shea Weber and Carey Price were not going to be protected in the expansion draft, I mean, it's strange how things unfold. Mm-hmm. But again, I don't know who. I haven't looked at Montreal's protected list yet, but I don't know who. Other than Price that they would take, but it's going to be somebody other than Price.
Just a couple things before we go.
Yep.
OG's Converse, thanks for being a part of it. We're getting into too much of the chat, but you guys have at it. And then this chat lives on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/the Leafs Convo. If you're watching us after the fact, just hit the like button. Maybe subscribe to the podcast too. We keep on going. And then this content is on every one of your favorite podcast platforms too. Spencer Carberry and Dean Chenoweth, assistant coaches. Mm-hmm. So in line with other things happening that are a little bit more connected to the ice itself.
Yeah.
Nothing big, just nickel and diming it, but not, I don't mean that these moves mean nothing. It's just, housekeeping and filling holes. But I'm sure down the line, we'll look at some of these moves, some of these signings, some of these additions and say, hey, you know what? There was a reason behind them.
Well, Chenoweth has a really good reputation in the league. He was 3 years, I believe, as assistant coach in Carolina, coaching their defense, and their defense is very good. So, I mean, they have talent there, but, I think that's a good hire to replace Hackstall as the blue line coach. I don't know much about Carberry. I do know that he won AHL Coach of the Year last year with the limited amount of games that the AHL played. The funny thing was, if the press release that was put out announcing his hiring, they mentioned Manny Malhotra and Dean Chenoweth. They didn't mention Paul McLean, and I was a little surprised that they were adding another assistant coach. Now, maybe Paul McLean's just going to be the eye in the sky, and they're just adding another young coach. And I've heard a lot of good things from reports about Carberry, but it was interesting that Paul McLean was not included as being mentioned as part of the release. So is it possible that he may be retiring or not coming back? I don't know. There has not been any mention of that. But I do think that the Leafs are maybe trying to, adopt some new or different philosophies after the failures of the last few years. I do know that, there was a hue and cry for Manny Malhotra to not be back, and I reiterated this after the playoffs. This is the same coach that coached the Leafs power play to an almost 40% effectiveness at the beginning of the year, and then they were terrible in the
It wasn't his fault.
Right, it's like it's the play. He's setting up the structure. Whose responsibility is it? It's the players on the frickin' ice. That's what it. That's who it is.
Yeah, I agree. We'll head out with MK Ultra. Where are we here? He says the Leafs are doomed.
There's an
again, and I just real quick, and I'll let you finish it up. So when the Leafs lost in Game 7 to the Habs, we were all feeling like shit, and questioning whether we should be fans of this team anymore. Wondering how a team with that kind of assembly of talent can, fall apart in 3 opportunities to close out a rival that was at least on a talent level inferior. But as time has gone on, I've let it go. Am I happy with the organization? No. Am I optimistic that a championship lies in the near future for this organization? No. But we have to move on. No matter how I'm feeling about this team and the way it had operated and way it may operate in the future, I do not think it is doomed. I mean, that is a very dire and fatalistic view of an organization that was one of the best in the league and had an opportunity to go to the second round 4 games into a series. They just couldn't get over the hump. That to me does not spell doom. That to me tells me that there are some psychological issues with this organization, and it, has to keep on pushing forward. But with the way that the talent, is still, principally set up on this team, I would not say that it's doomed. Last word to you.
Yeah, no, I think that's a bit over the top, MK. I think, obviously I understand that point of view based on the fact that, Leafs Nation there's been more discontent about the Leafs and their, the way that they are after the loss to Montreal, because Leaf fans hate Montreal. They know a bunch of Montreal fans, and they'll be taking crap from them until they play them again in the playoffs. And I mean, just look at the reaction, and he's my buddy. Just look at the reaction of a guy like Steve Dangle. He's bitter. He's pissed off at what's going on with the Leafs because they keep, it's the sort of here's the carrot. Oh, they're a good team. They won the North Division. And then all of a sudden, they lose in 7 games to the team that had the worst record going into the playoffs. So I understand it, but I'm telling you right now, there's talent on this team. They have to eventually find a way through. I know that Leaf fans won't accept that because they think it's basically Murphy's Law that they'll find a way to rip their heart out again. I get it, but we'll see.
But doomed. Right?
Doomed. Yeah, doomed. Yeah, Sabres, the Buffalo Sabres are doomed. That's doomed. That's 31st place 3 times, I believe, in the last 6 years. That's doomed. Do you want that? That's doomed.
Are you telling me that there has not been one point during your fandom, during your life in wonderful Buffalo, that you were not at least tempted to shift allegiances from a Leaf team that seemed doomed, to a Sabres team that looked to be on the precipice of something?
When I was 8 years old, I liked the French Connection. They went.
Who didn't?
Yeah, exactly. But when you're 8 years old, I think you don't have a rock hard allegiance to a team. You just like the game. You just like and the Sabres. That was when the Sabres made the Stanley Cup final in '75.
Mm-hmm.
So, I liked it. But then when it got down to me deciding on which team I was going to root for, my older brother was a Leaf fan. So that was the team I gravitated towards. And I will blame him for my early demise when I die of a heart attack because of all the games that I've watched the Leafs lose over my 54 years. But now, being a reporter, I can't be that much of the fan as I used to be. But yeah, I mean, no, I've never been tempted. And as a fan of one team, I despise the other 30. So I've never been infected with that disease.
I was so tribal for so long, Mike. For so long. I remember over times where I was in front of the television on my hands and knees, praying to God the other team didn't score. And when they did, I was just dejected and empty and near tears. And when the Leafs would win, the entire building that I was living in at the time would know it. I don't know if it's me over time becoming a little more jaded by everything, obviously more focused on a different career outside of broadcast and my family, and realizing that the Leafs have major hurdles to overcome before I can reinvest everything in me with the total belief that the opportunity is there. I don't know what it is, but I just don't feel as deeply about the Maple Leafs and deeply against their opponents as I once did. I am a bit concerned about that because it's more of a bland approach to what I'm watching, and it's more surgical, more clinical. It may have come from the fact that I worked in broadcasting for so long, but I want to get it. I want to get some of that back, but I have to feel like the team that I'm watching is giving me real hope and not just smoke and mirrors night in and night out. So this is all the process that we're involved in right now, and watching this team tweak and make subtle improvements and just take it step by step. And those who say that they hate being Leaf fans or this is punishment or torture right now shouldn't be anything. It should be an opportunity to take a deep breath and watch how this team evolves going forward. It is not doomed. I'll tell you that for sure. For Mike, I'm Norm. We'll see you later.